No.
You know, they wrote a better story than I could have ever told.
But it's your story.
It is, but it's fun to see it through someone else's eyes.
Yeah. Did you enjoy that part? Like, I mean, you've lived this story. You talked through this story. They gave image to it. Did you sit back and be like, what did you get out of it when you watch this back? When you're kind of telling your story and now you're watching it on a screen?
Do you ever come to the point in your life where you go, I like what has happened to me?
Well,
No. So
I have a hard time with that because your story, like, I don't want to, like, I mean, yes, like, but I've not been in a county jail for, 93 days?
Yeah,
or
but
97
days? So you find yourself there, what are you going to do with it?
Right.
You're going to sit in the corner and be pissed off that this is what your life is.
I feel like I have to if I'm an innocent man. Like, I don't know that I could be like, this is a great time to think about all the great decisions I've made in my life.
No, but so I'm sitting there with all of these guys that I never anticipated I'd be with.
Right.
And their lives are like, they would come over and there would be two guys kind of milling around over here waiting their turn to come over and tell me their stories.
Right.
I never imagined in my wildest dreams I would get to be in that place among these people that I found myself liking.
Yeah.
There were guys that had value. There were guys that their value was buried so deep. You would watch it unfold and you'd go, oh, I'm afraid of that guy. And then one moment, this guy makes himself vulnerable to you in a place you never expected.
Right.
And you go, there's a human with merit.
Yeah.
And I get to see it.
Yeah.
I get to see that. You find yourself in situations, that's why it's eyes nicely open.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here in jail. Yes, I was pissed off. Yes, I was so angry at Diego for putting me in that situation that I never expected to be in. And I think, oh, how did I get here? And then I go, it don't matter. Here I am. What am I going to do with it?
Yeah. Well, so let me go ahead. I feel like, man, I'm so sorry. We were into that deep one, guys. I don't know how we'll intro this, but hopefully we'll keep everything in. But hey, guys, this is Kerry with Project Nerd coming to you from the Nederland Film Festival. And as you just heard already, I have one of the best stories, here. I have Edwin Watters with Eyes Nicely Open, and by far, if you haven't seen it, please go out and see it. You're going to hear a lot about this, but the story. I hate calling it a story because it's not a story, it's your life. It's an event that occurred, where you're the main character in it. And I think with that, since we've already kind of jumped into it, why don't you tell us a condensed version, because I know we're going to go out there and our audience is going to watch it, but why don't you tell us kind of how you got to be in a county jail for 97 days?
I went down, I'm a carpenter. I went down to flip a house for some friends of mine. It's a block away from Canyon Road in Santa Fe. The location had tremendous potential, and my friends asked me to fix it up. And so in the process of that, this story unfolded in my life.
And by story, I think there's a fiction element to when we say story, but this isn't fiction. You actually you lived a situation where you were put into a negative environment where you had to defend yourself.
I did. I shot a man in self-defense, and suddenly went from being bullied to being bullied by the state of New Mexico.
Right.
The prosecutor's office. I never thought for a moment they wouldn't look and go, maybe this isn't what it is.
Yeah.
And you see that when you watch the documentary. Megan Dorsey does such a wonderful job talking about how the story in the policeman's eyes is X without taking a look to say, wait a minute, what else could have happened?
Yeah, I think that as an audience member, so again, we're talking about a film and we're identifying it as a film, but when I'm hearing the description, I appreciated it, the viewpoint of like, well, an officer could have seen it this way, and they did see it this way. Right. Now, it was wrong, but they kind of give you a layout of, you don't typically see that a lot in films or in media as a whole, of where they kind of give you the opposing viewpoint. Right. Right. And I like that they kind of spelled out, well, yes, we know what it is now, but in a layman or an officer's, this Diego was laying outside, shot in the back. you can make conclusions. But
I like that. You sound like the prosecutor.
Oh,
man.
yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't want to be like...
You should have been sitting there with me in court.
But I feel like that's what Elizabeth has done with this movie is it really gives you all the details. There's nothing left for you to kind of go in and make an assumption.
So then the story is not the details. The story is, well, how does this affect you?
Right.
When you never saw it coming. What are you going to do with it? Who do you want to be in your story?
Yeah.
That really, it boils down to who do you want to be in your story. Each one of you guys are living a life, and you're the lead. So what are you going to do with the story? How are you going to make it come out? Who do you choose to be?
Yeah. Well, and I thought like the one thing that captured me, and this is where I call it kind of, I get on my back up there and I look at the screen. It's when you say, that's when I realized I was in for the adventure of my life.
Yeah, I knew this thing wasn't going to go away.
And that's
I had
where
to
it's
sit
like,
and watch it happen.
You're sitting there and you're like, well, let's see what happens. And what happens is 97 days in the county jail. You mentioned not only being bullied by the aggressor in the situation you were faced with, but now the state,
the system has got a hold of you by the throat, like Diego said, I like to choke people.
Yeah.
That's what the state does. And
it really did. And the one thing that I wanted to kind of get into, and we only have a short time, but what I thought was really instrumental in your case was I thought it was a very lucky situation. You had like multiple situations that really allowed for you to be released from the county jail, because if not, you had been in the county jail for a lot longer than 97 days.
Sure, I would.
So what was the justice system like before you kind of got released from the county jail? Because you were being held.
I had come to a point where I realized I could do whatever it took to get to the end of it.
Right.
I found where I was it's like I had gotten the fullness of my experience. I understood I could be there. I kind of owned that I probably would be there after two bail reduction hearings, and then
$500,000
cash only.
Not 10%.
Not 10%.
Full bail, $500,000.
Cash only, yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. When you see it, I think Elizabeth does a great job. The words on the screen. When you see $500,000 in numerical form on the screen in black and white, you're like, that's a large amount of money.
Let me tell you about adventure. It is not a vacation in Mexico.
Right.
It grabs you by the neck and it shakes you like a cat with a rat. And it throws you off in the corner and you sit there going, wow.
Yeah. At what point, like you talk about how, and I think it's great, and I hope that we got a chance to capture it, where we're all the main characters in our own story. You're the main character in the story, but you're in a county jail. Your bail has been denied, I think, multiple times. And then I believe, if I got it right, the State v. Brown comes out.
It does.
What did that do, or what decision did that make that allowed for you to kind of continue with your adventure and your story?
Well, it moved it along.
Yeah.
It took it to the next phase. Being in the jail is not really what is so hard. What is hard is being in somebody's home with a door you can walk out of. There's nobody there to stop you. And you've got to have made up your mind, I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in. I'm not. It is so easy for somebody who's been given bail or even someone in jail to pick up secondary charges.
Yeah.
Had I gotten in a fight in jail, and there were plenty of guys who would like to fight.
Yeah.
I found myself, it's just funny about this, I was surrounded by 3 white supremacist guys that had my back.
Okay.
And to me, those guys didn't have to do that. They could have used me.
Yeah.
But they would say, listen, dude, when you go to court.
So they're educating you on this whole...
They're educating me on this whole thing. And I found myself just surprised by every aspect, every turn of the adventure. It was like, oh, and I get to do this. It changes. Oh, it scares the hell out of you, believe me.
Right. But you're describing it like, hey, everybody should just go and do this and experience it, but...
Well, no, I wouldn't wish it on anybody, because it is the blackest, scariest place you're ever going to peer out of.
That's what I was like. I was surprised a lot in the movie that it really had a very positive kind of thing. The way you're phrasing it was, even though I was there, I got to meet these people and I heard these stories and I benefited not only from their stories but mine. I realized I was my own main character and how I wanted to kind of portray this next chapter. Like I have an opportunity to go one way or the other.
We never in the filmmaking knew where we were going.
Right.
And that's why I'm so humbled by what the editor did with it. It is just, you know, how often do you get in life the chance to be a part of something and just watch it unfold and go, I couldn't have, this happened to me.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure people with fame and fortune do that all the time, but I'm given maybe even a greater responsibility than that because my eyes were really opened to the restorative justice movement,
right.
how that fits where healing comes in. When I think about what I've been through and the things that I did, why the tent? I needed a safe, quiet place to go where I could contemplate. And I thought, well, I'm going to write about this. And it was just a roadblock. And who walks into my life but Elizabeth?
Yeah.
You know, and she wants to tell this story. And every facet of this whole thing took on its own life.
Yeah, I think it's a story that we kind of hear a lot now in our society, right? This isn't the first time this has happened. It is the first time it happened to you. Thankfully, it worked out in the direction that it did. But it's amazing how you try to create this view on justice. And you talked about restorative justice. I had no idea what that was.
Me neither.
Can you talk a little bit about what restorative justice is? Or what it's trying to do? Let's say, what is the concept and why would people go down the direction of restorative justice?
There are those people in prison who have big black empty holes in their lives. There's a whole bunch of people who wind up in their given circumstances who become worse because of having been there. Restorative justice creates an environment for those who are not black ugly holes to have their community come together and lift them out of it.
Right.
It's the people they've offended and them and their families. Rarely is a story one of these, rarely does somebody fall into this stuff, but that they're at one extreme or the other. They're in one progression, either down or restorative justice is a progression that lifts them out of, it's like a strainer on the sink.
Yeah.
You know, you can pull these guys out of this place they've been and there's some value, brings the value back into them, brings the community's value of them up in their own eyes.
Right.
It's, somebody who's a black, ugly, hardened criminal, I don't know, I don't have the answers, but at least we start a discussion and maybe somebody's brilliant and can show us how to help them too.
Well, I think it goes into rehabilitation.
Right.
When I heard restorative justice, the main concept that I kind of started to correlate it to was rehabilitation. The ability to still see this as a person, as a human being, and seeing some sort of value. And it seemed like the way you were kind of talking about through the movie, in the people that you had met, you saw value in them. You saw that, yes, they might have done something, but the stories they had, I think back to the example you brought up of the heroin addict and how his story came to be and how, in a lot of ways, it wasn't his choice. And his choice was kind of taken from him, but you still saw value in the rehabilitation and the ability to invest in people.
Sure.
Do you still see that? And this is the thing that I think of when I watch as an audience member, as a citizen, I see these stories, and it's hard for me to think, how do you come out of that with a positive approach? How do you come out of that not feeling like you were bullied multiple times throughout your own story? How do you now become the hero in your own story? Or do you think of yourself as that? It doesn't seem.
Well, first of
you
all,
seem like a very humble person.
I don't think of myself as a hero, but what I find fascinating is that, unbeknownst to me, I'm given a forum to talk about things that matter. And so there's where I am in that. If somebody will listen, we didn't know where our documentary was going, but this is the turn that it took. And so we're just sitting in the back seat of the bus singing.
Right.
Who knows where this goes, but we're here. We suited up and we're ready for the day.
Well, I don't think I can say any better than that. I mean, I don't know I mean, what else to do? But I'm going to call you Mr. Watters. I find
it's Edwin.
Edwin.
Please.
I still want to call him Mr. Watters. I mean, obviously you could tell your presence is amazing, but your story is even more amazing. It's a story that people need to hear.
Absolutely.
But with that, when you see people watch this, or when you hope people watch this, what's the message that you're wanting people to take away from your story and the story that Elizabeth has created on this film?
Are your eyes nicely open? Wake up.
I mean, come on. I mean, he's a salesman, but honestly, we've laughed, we joked, but I hope you appreciate the seriousness. I don't know, when I watched it, I felt this very serious story, and seeing this man laugh makes it even better for me, because I'm sitting there like, I don't know how to take it, but Edwin, I'll say it, this dude is by far one of the nicest people we've met. But I hope our audience goes out and watches it. If not, I know all of us have watched it. But Edwin, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us. It's an amazing story, and I'm glad it worked out. And I'm glad you're sitting here and not in the county jail. But for everybody else, this is Kerry with Project Nerd, coming to you from another Colorado Festival production at the Nederland Film Festival. Until next time, definitely go out, eyes nicely open. What's coming up next is now director stuff. So, Edwin, thank you for taking the time.
You bet.
Appreciate it, man.